When we talk about gym training for sprinters, a lot of the time the go-to is heavy lifting, quick lifting in the gym, in the weight room, which is fine. It definitely has its place, but I'm going to be talking about arguably just as important methods of training in the gym to target different areas that are, in my opinion, more applicable to sprinting than muscle strength alone. So I don't want to be the person saying okay, gym training is bad, because it's not. If you see sprinters, the best sprinters are very strong. However, the strongest lifters aren't necessarily quick. So there is a balance. So it's obviously just more than about lifting weights. I'm going to work from the ground up. So starting with training your feet. And I've definitely on this channel mentioned it before, and I've also mentioned it in the Sprint Lab podcast that I do with Kieran Gillespie, which is on Spotify. But training the feet is very important in running, because when you're at max velocity and ground contact times are very short and there's not enough time for muscles to fully contract to produce force, a lot of the force you're putting into the floor is stored and released quickly with your Achilles and foot complex. So tendons can stretch and recoil a lot quicker in storing and releasing force, a lot quicker than muscles can generate force. Taking advantage of that is going to be massively beneficial, more so than strength training for upright sprinting and max velocity sprinting. Unfortunately, there's a bit of a gap that needs bridging in terms of how to train this properly. Essentially, what you want to be doing is teach your body that it's okay and safe to have stiffer knee and hip complex, and then allow your ankle to do most of the work. Now, when I say teach your body that it's safe, that also means build up to a point where it becomes safe. So I would say to start this, you want to be either you basically want to unload yourself. So you want to be doing even less than body weight. To ways to do that, you can get a band, tie it up to a pull-up bar, and then keep tension in the band the whole time. And that's going to sort of pull your body weight up. So you're essentially minimizing your weight. The second way is to do it in water, submerged in a swimming pool. The point is, though, to keep your knee and hip locked in an extended position. And so you're only flexing at the ankle. So it's pure plantar and dorsiflexion of the ankle. And the point is, you're purely loading the Achilles. The good thing is, you don't need to do loads of these. These are extensive plyometrics. These can be done almost every 48 hours, pretty much. The reason you don't want to go straight away into loading them is because when you start loading, one or two things will happen. You'll either compensate, like a lot of people do in sprinting, where you see a bent knee and a bent hip. And when I say compensate, I mean the brain knows that your ankle isn't strong enough to manage certain forces. So it will compensate by bending a knee to absorb some load, bending a hip to absorb load. Unfortunately, in sprinting, this is, while it's keeping us safe from injuries, it's actually slowing us down, because it's increasing our ground contact times, and we're therefore having to produce force more with muscles rather than the elastic recoil from tendons. Muscles, first of all, can't generate as much force as a tendon can in the same time, but second of all, they use a lot more energy. So if you're using a lot more energy, you're going to be tiring out quicker. So that's going to lead to people burning out quicker during a race, which is what I talked about in my other video I did while I was on holiday. Which reminds me, I am on holiday making videos, so please consider subscribing and liking the video if you're enjoying it. Right, let's get back to it. These are referred to as pogo hops. So this isn't revolutionary stuff. This all exists, but a lot of people aren't prioritizing this as much as they should. So teaching your body to be reactive quickly is very important, but alongside that, building strength through these positions is important. And to build strength through these positions, you want to be holding isometrics and limiting the range of motion, essentially. So obviously building strength for a full range of motion squat is good, but it's not directly transferring to sprinting. Again, in that other video I made, I discussed like why stronger runners in the gym are better at starts, because that is the only phase where you're really utilizing muscle contraction during force production. Number 2, so basically your brain knows to keep you safe, so everything we do movement wise is governed by our brain sort of saying, okay, but we will get injured if we put this much force in. If you like were to fully contract every single muscle like through an electric shock, you could easily throw yourself across a room without like trying. But in our bodies, we are able to produce way more force than we ever actually do, and that's because the brain's protecting us. And in a similar way, you can sort of by overtraining things gradually, you can teach your brain it is safe to do certain movements. The first thing people think about this is like overspeed, and yes, this is true. This is teaching the brain, look, it's okay to run a little bit quicker, whether that be running with extra wind or with a little harness pulling you along or a bungee spring pulling you along. These are really good things to improve max speed, which the only way to improve max speed is to run at or quicker than max speed. Like, that is just a fact. If you're not running at max or above max speed, you're not truly training max speed. You might be improving other facets of your running, but it's not actually going to increase your max speed without touching max speed or improve or going further than max speed. But like I said, I'm talking about things you're doing in a gym rather than on the track. So I'm here actually talking about the brain sending signals through the spine to the muscles. So if your spine is a bit messed up, then your brain is going to say, nah, I am not happy to send signals to fully contract that. And this is subconscious, so you can't even think about doing this. So essentially what I'm saying is you need to find ways to train the spine, like in the spinal column, in different positions under load. So whether that be rotating, whether that be keeping your spine still and rotating at the hips, whether that be leaning against the wall and hinging and rotating, all these different things are challenging the spine in different ways. And by challenging the spine in different ways, it's going to improve your brain sending signals through the spine to sort of allow you to produce more of these forces. Like I was saying, we are all able to produce more force than we ever do, but being able to express that is like about gradually increasing our body's ability without getting injured is the key. As soon as you get injured, the body goes into protective mechanism or protective mode again, and it becomes quite hard to sort of get back to where you were. That's what's a lot of the time, that is why people are never the same after an injury, because it's a brain thing rather than an actual muscle issue. A lot of the times the muscle comes back stronger, but our brain's not ability but likelihood, I guess, of sending the same force through that muscle is reduced because it's like, I guess, scared. It just wants to protect you, which is good, but like, we want to be protected. But if you're trying to perform at a really high level, it's a lot harder to accept, for your brain to accept, to like, right, let's go full force here. And that leads to other problems down the line, like imbalances and stuff. Basically, make sure when you're like any rehab program, you really learn to like reload through that affected area. So that's part 2. Part 3 then is actually training our like proprioception and our ability to, or for our brain to know where we are in space. I've seen stuff about neurology of sprinting and stuff before, and very interesting stuff. I'm no expert at it, but essentially, if you're blind or you can't see the floor or something, your brain doesn't know where the floor is. So your brain, again, is going to go into protective mode because it doesn't know when the floor's coming, so it's going to be cautious. Even if you tell yourself the floor will be there, your brain will hold a little bit back. If you think about it, like training your peripheral view is going to improve your brain's ability to know where it is in space. And by your brain knowing where it is in space, it's going to feel safer to produce higher forces. Right? So if you're running, you're sprinting, you need to be looking where you're going. If you're looking over there, if you're looking to the side, your brain's not going to want to produce as much force because it's not going to know where it's going. It's likewise, if you're looking upwards, it doesn't know how close to the ground you are. By improving your peripheral vision, you're actually going to improve, like I say, your brain's awareness of itself, self-awareness, and then from that, the likeliness of producing more force is going to increase. And that's essentially what we want to do. You want to produce more force into the ground, because the more force we put into the ground, the more force we get out. The final point I want to touch on is about instability training. The point of this is a lot of studies and research has been gone into using instability training, so like balancing on an unstable surface, with older adults, and it works wonders for them. And the reason is the instability training, your body is shaken, let's say. You'll notice it at times if you were to stand on one leg, and even if you don't have access to a Bosu ball or an unstable surface. I keep getting that wrong. Just stand on one leg, close your eyes, and if that's too easy, go onto like the ball of your foot and reduce that surface area and go and close your eyes. And if that's too easy, do the same, but moving your head each way, side to side each time. And essentially what's happening with instability training, so normally your brain sends signals to the muscle, and for like a reflex, it's almost like reflex training. Well, I believe this is what happens, but essentially like you're training the muscle. So, how do I explain this? Let's say you step on something really, really hot. Now, little receptors in your feet have to travel all the way up your leg, all the way up your spine to your brain, and then from your brain back down to your spine, back down to your leg, telling the right muscles to pick your foot up and be like, bro, that's too hot, get off. That's a long way for a nerve to travel. I know they're rapid, but it's still a long way. So what happens is that our brain can short circuit, which is really cool, and it sort of cuts off at the bottom of the spine, and then it automatically sort of just tells you, it's a reflex, it tells you to, now that's too hot. It gets really interesting if you were to pick something up, for instance, that's really hot, but it's a really like expensive item. Your body senses it's too hot and it wants to drop it, but the brain can interfere and be like the brain can interfere quick enough and be like, no, that's expensive, I'm going to put that down, and then suffer. We're kind of drifting off topic, but the point is, if you're training instability training, your muscles are turning on and off so quickly that your brain is like, I don't know if the brain's keeping up or if this is like short circuiting at the spine. Either way, you're training your body to switch on and off muscles very quickly, and the best athletes are able to turn off the opposing muscles. So if you're trying to put force into the ground, you want your posterior chain firing, but you want your frontal plane relaxed to allow that foot to slam into the floor. If they're engaged, if your hip flexors engaged, then your hip extensors are going to be fighting against resistance, so you're not going to be able to produce as much of a whip. It's just a very easy way to train the body to turn on and off muscles quickly. So your brain just becomes very good at switching on and switching off quickly, and that's going to transfer to running when you want to switch off muscles and on muscles at the right times. Just to quickly summarize then, we had number 1 was about training the foot and Achilles, strengthen those areas, get them used to moving in very quick times without compensating at other joint angles. Number 2 was training the spine to improve your brain's perception of threat and danger. By decreasing your brain's perception of threat, you're going to increase the potential to generate force. Number 3 was similar, but for the eyes and your peripheral vision. And number 4 was instability training, teaching the muscle to turn on and off and coordinate. Like I said at the start of the video, slow heavy lifting has its place. I'm not saying to get rid of that completely, but at the same time, I think these are some good additions that you're probably not doing that will definitely translate to max speed and speed in general more directly down the gym. Thanks for watching. I'm going to get back to my holiday, so peace out.